I'll do something good today.
Hey y'all, welcome to Dad Does Dinner. Today we'll be making chili rellenos and enchiladas rojas. For you non-Mexican food speakers, these are stuffed poblano peppers and enchiladas with red sauce. Now I'm sure a lot of y'all are thinking, hey, didn't I just watch Mike make this on One Arm Brewing and Barbecue a couple of days ago? And aren't you just stealing this from him? The answer is sorta. Yes, Mike did that fantastic episode. I watched it on Sunday night. I woke up at 5:20 Monday morning and I could not stop thinking about stuffed poblano peppers. The great news is that 6 months from now, when this coronavirus is cleared and we're back to work, back to our normal lives, and you're watching rerun after rerun of Dad Does Dinner, and you're thinking to yourself, Chase, I just don't have the time to do all of these ingredients from scratch. Head on over to Mike's channel. Mike offers a lot of time-saving tips that are full of flavor, and while his stuffed peppers and enchiladas will be great anytime, they're a quick and easy weeknight meal. Mike cooks with big, bold flavors. He does time-saving tips. Try his recipe. I'm sure you'll enjoy it too. Speaking of Mike, on yesterday's Refried Bean episode, I gave a little bit of the history of how we became friends. My wife, who watches these videos while hiding in the bedroom so I don't have to see the looks of horror on her face, said that my description of Mike and I's relationship was much like a commercial for a dating app. I looked at her and said, babe, the bromance is real. Mike and I get along, we have a good time together. We're just two fat guys who love to eat. So let's go inside and start putting together everything that we need for tonight's dinner. Now, so this is a poblano. Looks somewhat like a bell pepper. If you taste it raw, you'll notice a slight sweetness to it. It's definitely got an earthiness to it, and it's got just a little bit of back-end heat. Cooking the poblano peppers really brings out the natural sugars in it, and they do get sweeter as they cook. Overall, it's a very mild-tasting pepper. So what I've done, I've created an opening in the pepper, and this will make it easier for me to stuff. I made the opening just big enough so I could get a finger or two in there to pull out the seeds and the membrane. It comes out pretty easily. The first thing I'm gonna do is put my poblanos in a 350-degree oven for about 5 minutes, maybe up to 7 minutes, just to get them soft and pliable so they're easier to stuff. My poblanos are done. I want you to take a look at that. You can just see those wrinkles on the skin just when that skin starts to wrinkle, and you can give them a little touch and you can feel that they've softened up. They still got a lot of firmness to them, but they're definitely more pliable. This ended up taking 10 minutes at 350 degrees. These tops that I had left over, I'm gonna chop up and saute in with my chorizo to stuff into the pepper. Yes, I'm stealing that idea from Mike. Now I'm gonna put together some guacamole. Start with an avocado. I've cut it into chunks in the skin. I'm just gonna spoon that out. In my bowl, I've got the juice and zest of an entire lime. Depending on the firmness of your avocado, you can mash it with a fork, or in this case, I'm gonna use a potato masher. I like it to look like that. I'm gonna add a diced Roma tomato. I'm also gonna add a half a jalapeno, about a quarter cup of finely diced red onion. I'm gonna chop up some cilantro to go in. I know for about 20% of the population, you have a genetic disposition that makes cilantro taste like somebody has shaved a bar of dial soap over whatever it is you're eating. My theater department colleague, Emmy, also has this disposition for cilantro. I've been thinking about Emmy a lot today. Emmy was directing our production of Mamma Mia at the college, and of course it had to be canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. I was in it, my wife was in it, Emmy was directing it, and we were just having a great time. Tonight was the preview night for it, and that's where I'm supposed to be right now. Emmy and I are both blessed with voices that carry well. Often I've been told, especially when I'm passionate about a subject, that I'm yelling when I talk. Well, I don't think that's yelling. Heck, just ask my students at Jesuit High School. That was a Catholic boys' school, and when I was a young teacher, that was yelling. I know in Emmy's case, during one particularly passionate discussion she was having with Super Nate, that's her flip-flop adorned computer hacker husband, he might have referred to her as mean director lady. Heck, we just want to be heard. All the ingredients are the guacamole. I want to stir this well to combine. I'm going to add about half teaspoon of salt, a few cracks of black pepper, and I just want to get this till it's just incorporated. Mash your avocados, mix it to whatever consistency that you want. Around here we like a little texture, and so this is what it looks like. Before I did the guacamole, I whipped up a batch of my chipotle lime cilantro crema. If you want to see the recipe for that, head on over to the Enchiladas Verdes episode. What am I talking about? I know you've already seen it. Now I'm going to mix up the spice mix for the enchilada sauce. So in my bowl, I've got 3 tablespoons of flour. On the stove, I've got 3 tablespoons of olive oil over medium-low heat. So you want a tablespoon of chili powder, a teaspoon of cumin, about a half teaspoon of garlic powder, maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of Mexican oregano, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. It's just a little pinch of cinnamon, but it really wakes up the flavors of everything else. Remember, a little cinnamon goes a long way in savory cooking. My olive oil is really starting to get fragrant, so I'm going to add the spice mixture into it. I'm just going to whisk it in. After a couple of minutes, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Okay, so now we have that tomato spice flour paste. And I'm going to slowly add broth. In this case, I'm going to use some of that homemade turkey broth that we made on Monday. It's easier to get this smooth when you have less liquid in it. So add a little bit more, so about 1/3 of this each time. So there's 2 cups in all. And all the lumps are out, so I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my liquid. I'm going to raise my heat to a medium-high, just above medium. All right, this came up to a simmer. I've reduced it to low. So about a half teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 to a half teaspoon of pepper. I'm going to turn it off. It's going to thicken up even more. After I've turned it off, I'm going to add about a teaspoon and maybe a half of apple cider vinegar. This will somewhat brighten it up and give it a subtle tang. As this sits and cools, this is going to thicken up a little bit. All right, now I'm going to start browning the chorizo and get the filling ready for the poblano peppers. And I'm also going to start refrying the beans. These are the beans that we made yesterday. So I've got my pan over here on medium-high heat. Put about a tablespoon of olive oil in it and add to the pan about a 1/2 cup of diced red onion and all of those poblano tops that we took off of our poblano peppers. Add a little salt, maybe a 1/2 teaspoon. So I just want these to start to sweat. In this pan, I've got some bacon grease, about 2 tablespoons of bacon grease. I'm going to put that on medium heat. The onions and peppers are fragrant. I'm going to add in a pound of chorizo. Now, if you don't want to use your own chorizo here, Johnsonville makes a really good chorizo, and lots of supermarkets around here, we have a wide variety of chorizos. I would use a fresh chorizo and not one that's smoked and hardened, although you could use that too. My bacon grease is melted and fragrant. I'm going to add in about half the beans that we cooked yesterday. Incorporate the bacon grease into the beans and cook these to a consistency that I like. Now, if you don't make your own beans, here's what I recommend. Open up a can of beans. Old El Paso is my favorite brand for this. Heat up a little bacon grease, dice an onion finely, put that into the bacon grease, get that onion sauteed, and when it gets soft, then add in your can of beans. Throw in with that maybe 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, maybe a little bit of chili powder, 1/2 teaspoon of coriander, and you'll get a nice homemade taste to that. My beans have gotten hot and bubbly. They're just a little bit thinner than I want them to be, so I'm going to turn my heat down to low, and I'm just going to let these cook down for a little bit. So the chorizo is getting close to done. I went ahead and gave it a little taste. When we made this chorizo, we only put in a couple of teaspoons of salt because I knew I could add some later. I didn't want it to become too salty as it sat and all those flavors came together. It's very spicy, which I love, and I think it could use about another 1/2 teaspoon, 3/4 teaspoon of salt. When you're making a dish like this, don't get your ingredients as salty as you want them because everything you're putting together has some salt in it, including some cheese that we're gonna add, and that'll all add together. You don't want to end up with something that's over salted. So be judicious with your use of salt. So my chorizo took about 10 minutes to get where I want it to get. It's just starting to get a little dry. Some of that moisture is cooking out, so that's just perfect. So I'm going to remove it from the heat. After about 20 minutes, these beans are just about to where I want them. As they sit, they are going to thicken up a little bit more, so we're going to remove these from the heat, and I'm going to start getting my enchiladas ready. Now, you may have made corn tortilla enchiladas before, and maybe you had trouble folding them because the tortillas were a little dry, or when you got them all together, they became soggy and fell apart. This will keep that from happening. So I have here some canola oil that's at 365 degrees. I'm gonna quick fry each tortilla for 10 seconds on each side. What this does is it creates a barrier so the enchilada sauce isn't gonna soak into the tortilla. You're also building flavor because you're caramelizing the proteins and the sugars in the corn tortilla. So you don't want these to become hard. You do 10 seconds on each side and then simply set on paper towels. If frying makes you nervous, go ahead and heat these up a little bit on a griddle pan. You'll get close to the same effect. So we fried 10 tortillas and now I'm gonna pass them through some of the sauce that I brought just to a simmer and then turn down to very low heat. This ensures that your tortillas get completely covered in sauce. It's also more of a traditional way of doing it. Now I'm gonna start building my enchiladas. Now most of these are just gonna be regular cheese enchiladas. And I am gonna do a couple of special ones for myself. I grated up 8 ounces of cheddar cheese. I also did 8 ounces of pepper jack. So this is pretty simple. With cheese, put the amount of cheese you like. So you just wanna roll it, put the seam side down. For this one, I'm gonna put on some of my lime cilantro chipotle crema, and then a little bit of goat cheese. If you've never had it, it's a really strong flavored cheese. A little bit goes a long way. So I'm gonna cover half of these with pepper jack, the other half with cheddar. Take a look. And this is gonna go in the oven at 325 degrees for about 20 minutes. Now let's stuff the peppers. Start by spooning some beans, add some chorizo. I'm gonna top it with a little bit of cheese. For this one, I'm gonna add some goat cheese. Goat cheese is super soft and melts easily. Goat cheese, beans, chorizo, and pepper jack. I've got just a little bit of chorizo left. I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle that over the enchiladas. The enchiladas are going in the oven. And now let's head outside to the grill.
The reason I'm grilling these is because I want to get some of that smoky goodness infused into this.
I'd like to give a quick shout out to Mike and the crew at One Arm Brewing and Barbecue in San Angelo, Texas, home of the all-you-can-eat endless sausage platter. Mike, some of that grilled salsa you make would sure go good with tonight's meal over here. Hey, what'd you do kind for somebody today? During this time especially, keep others in your thoughts and prayers as we move our way through this coronavirus pandemic. Reach out. Do something good for somebody else.
So after 20 minutes, these are looking great. I think we'll hit them with a little bit of cilantro and some queso fresco, fresh onion. The peppers themselves are soft with just a little bit of firmness left. All the cheese is well melted. I'm gonna pull them off the grill. All right, so we're all plated up. I'm gonna add a little fresh cilantro to my pepper. Fresh jalapeno, a little bit of the enchilada sauce. I can't wait to eat. First, I'll try a bite of this pepper.
That's the pepper with the goat cheese, the chorizo, the pepper jack, the enchilada sauce, the beans. It's a little bit spicy, which is good. A lot of back end heat from the chorizo. That pepper, the way we did it, it's still got some firmness and some crunch to it. I like that. You can let these peppers go a little bit longer if you want your peppers softer. It's very tasty. Go try the enchilada. That is perfect. The way we did those tortillas, give them the quick fry, running up through the sauce. They maintain their integrity. They're still full of flavor. Good old American cheese enchilada. That's really tasty. It's got that salty bite from the cheddar. Spiciness from the enchilada sauce, and then I added a little fresh jalapeno, so that adds a spicy too. Just the right amount of salt is what we ended up with. Finally, a taste of my beans. They're thick, they're creamy. You can really taste the bacon that's in those. Very pleased with what we end up with tonight. This is all good stuff. You can do it yourself. Yes, this was labor intensive, but as far as a difficulty level, all of this stuff is easy to do. Enjoy cooking in your own kitchen. Let me know what you're doing out there. We'll see you next time. In my excitement about eating, I forgot to add our guacamole and the lime cilantro chipotle crema. I've now added those to the dish. It's fine without it. It's good with it. See y'all next time. And now I'm gonna pass out in a food coma. Awesome.
Well, let's all do something good.